Welcome, everyone. On this week's podcast, I'm talking with Karen Caig about Karuna Reiki. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this topic because our students have a lot of questions about Karuna Reiki, don't they?
Oh my goodness, it's probably the most confusing thing about the classes that we teach. So it's going to be really nice to help people understand what it is, what it can benefit, and let them find out if this is for them. It's not for everybody, but for those that do study Karuna Reiki, they get a lot from it.
Yeah. I tell my students, I said, well, about half of the students who take Reiki 1 and 2 will sign up for Reiki Master. They feel called to go farther. And only about half of those students feel the call to come on to Karuna Reiki. Sometimes it's immediately 6 months later when they're eligible for it. And sometimes it's a couple of years down the road. For me, it was. But it's a special kind of Reiki. So I look forward to talking about it.
Yeah, me too. And maybe more people will might pique their interest, because I'll tell you what, it is gorgeous and lovely to have. So before we begin, though, I just want to let people know what we have going on at the farm. First of all, I'm going to be teaching in Australia in March, both online and in person. If those time zones, if the Australian time zone, I'll be teaching in the Canberra time zone. If that works for you, please join us. I'll be teaching level 1 and 2 and masters, which would qualify you to become a professional member of the Reiki Membership Association, and also Animal Reiki level 1 and 2. And that should be a lot of fun. I'll be teaching at my friend Mary Merton Ryan's beautiful farm. We often are right out on the deck, and parrots and beautiful animals join us. It's lovely. Then in April, I have a full lineup of classes, level 1 and 2, master, animal Reiki level 1 and 2, and master. And a little later on, I've got a Karuna Reiki, an animal communication class coming up. Now, the animal communication class is evolving. I'm hearing that there will be symbols soon. I don't know if they'll be there in time for this class, but certainly there have been attunements added, and it's become a lot more powerful. As I continue to feel into this evolvement, I'll keep you updated. And I will also try to create some sort of an upgrade for people who've already studied it with me, because it really has become quite advanced lately and just different energy, a little bit more to it. I will be sharing that with people. And in May, I want to let you know that I'll be in Silver Bay, New York at the Northeast Reiki Retreat teaching Animal Reiki level 1 and 2. And then I'll also be presenting in mid-May at the retreat itself. So I will put a link in the podcast to the retreat. There are still spots if you'd like to attend. William Rand is also teaching there, Carolyn Musial and Tracy Sullivan. So would love to see you there. And one last little announcement. Quite a lot of you have been telling me that you would like me to mentor you from a business standpoint. And so what I'm going to do is, it may not be until the fall, but I am going to be creating a business mentoring course. The strong guidance is coming in from that. I don't know what the timing is, but just keep an eye out for that, and keep an eye out for our new website. My daughter is a copywriter. She's been helping me put together my new website. It will be live very soon, including an online store where you can order our essential oils. So even though it's winter and it seems quiet, it seems like there's been an awful lot happening. Karen, you've got a lot going on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I do have. In March, I do have a Reiki 1 and 2 Reiki Master class coming up. And then April, I'm taking off the entire month because I'm moving to Ecuador. And so I don't have any classes during April, but I will pick up again in May with animal Reiki classes, June. And I'm going to alternate between animal Reiki classes and regular Reiki classes. And I have a class coming up in August that I already have people signing up for. I usually only offer Karuna maybe 3 times a year.
Yeah, me too.
So I have one coming up in August and then another one in December. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting year. People say, are you going to teach in person in Ecuador? And I'm like, maybe, but probably it's going to be, I'm in the same time zone. I'm just on the equator. So I'm just moved from the Ozark Mountains to the Andes Mountains. And so it'll be different, but but pretty much the same.
I'm so very excited for you. And Karuna Reiki may have been one of the guiding forces that made this possible.
Maybe I love Karuna Reiki. My students ask me, I guess we should just dive right in. What is Karuna Reiki? Do you want to go ahead and jump in and start talking about that?
Do you know what? Why don't we go into an invocation? And while we do,
you
and I can use the distance symbol and send Karuna Reiki to the listeners so they can get a feel for it, because it's a very different frequency and vibration than Usui Reiki, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. To me, it feels more feminine.
Yeah.
To me.
And softer.
Yeah.
And yet incredibly powerful. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to just invite everybody listening to close your eyes if you can. Bring your hands together in Gasho and just take a deep breath, just breathing in the Reiki energy that surrounds you, activating your symbols. And Karen and I are going to silently chant the Karuna Reiki symbols, directing them to you through the distance symbol. And I'm just going to invite you to feel and see what you notice in your body. We'll begin with the first symbol, which is like a spiritual anesthetic, and it just is really powerful at releasing all the way into the cellular level. And then we'll chant the second symbol, which brings deep healing. And the third symbol that heals the heart and relationships, among other things. The fourth symbol is powerfully grounding. And if you have any energies that need to release right now, you'll notice that they release through the bottoms of your feet effortlessly, thanks to the previous symbols and this one. And Karen, would you lead us through the next four?
The next one I like to use for clearing my mind, connecting with source, for creativity, connecting my higher self with my human self. And the next one I use a lot to connect to my personal power. It's one of my favorite symbols.
I love this one too.
Before I had animal Reiki, I would use this symbol to connect to nature and to those interdimensional beings I find in nature. And the next one is for peace. I like to use this one if I'm feeling fearful about something or panicked. If you're worried about things and you can't fall asleep. It's good for manifesting, which I've been using a lot, manifesting the best results. It's also a good symbol for increasing your clairvoyance. And the final Karuna symbol is also deeply grounding. And combined with the previous symbol, it's powerful in manifesting. I've used this one a lot, trying to prepare to move to another country. It's helped me ground, manifest what I need, prioritize what I need to be working on.
And we'll end with holy fire, holy fire, holy fire. And we'll just invite the energy to envelop us and assist us as we listen to the rest of the podcast, essentially giving the listeners, giving you a Karuna Reiki session. And whenever you feel ready, I invite you to come back.
I hope everyone was able to feel that. It's very subtle, the differences between the frequencies, but there's my other cat.
But it's kind of neat what it does. I hope everybody could feel it too. So yeah, let's start with what is Karuna Reiki and
what was that?
What was that I just experienced and where did it come from? Let's start with that, Karen.
Okay. So Karuna, maybe this may be a place to address where in the ICRT we have a trademark after Karuna Reiki, because the word Karuna is just a Sanskrit word that means compassionate action. And the International Center for Reiki Training has not trademarked the energy. That would be ridiculous. Nobody can do that. The reason we have trademarked the name Karuna Reiki is to distinguish it from some of the other Reikis that have, Karuna Ki, but the word Karuna just means compassionate action. And so this specific Reiki that came through, it was developed by the ICRT, not just through William Rand, but through many of his students. They were getting these symbols and they brought them. And Laurel Shantigaya, this may be a good time to plug her book. The book on Karuna Reiki by Laurel Shantigaya is a good little resource on what is Karuna Reiki and how she worked with it. But she was instrumental in helping bring these energies forward. And they worked with these symbols. And what is that? They were, I guess, when these frequencies, when we're ready, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I guess when we are ready, the Reiki appears.
The energy
to help us along our evolution. And I think, so this came out in the 90s. This is when this was coming through, before Holy Fire. And they were working with these symbols like, wow, okay. And then developed it into it. In the original, there were two separate classes. There was Karuna 1 and Karuna 2. And we still refer to the first 4 symbols as Karuna 1 symbols and the second 4 as Karuna 2 symbols. But we teach the class as it's both a practitioner and a master class. So you become a Karuna Reiki practitioner, but also in that 3-day class, you learn how to teach Karuna Reiki. Only Reiki masters from any lineage, any Usui lineage, can take Karuna Reiki. So we require a 6-month period between master and Karuna, because you need to work with the energy at the master level. And as I said earlier, only about half of the people who take master, at least in my experience, I don't know about
Yeah, no, the same with me. I only teach it about 3 times a year for the same reason. Like, not as many people move on to Karuna, but it's a little bit of a shame, isn't it? And
it is.
I will mention that just the evolvement of the energy, that's another reason for the trademark, because a lot of people were starting to, energy evolves. And our Usui Reiki energy began evolving with Usui, and the evolvement continued with Hayashi, with Takata, and with the teachers that came after them as well. And one of the things that happened, like you said, when we're ready, the energy appears. The Karuna Reiki showed up, but it is such a high frequency of energy that it continued to evolve. And so people started teaching very different classes and calling them Karuna Reiki. And some of the students were disappointed because they wanted the original Karuna Reiki, not something different. And so the trademark just allows that integrity to exist. I don't know about you, Karen, but when I went to study Karuna Reiki, I was guided to. It is one of the steps in becoming a licensed teacher, but this was long before I was thinking of becoming a licensed teacher. I went to study Karuna Reiki in 2013, and I very specifically remember thinking that the Reiki Master level had just healed so many things for me and brought so much beauty into my life. I remember specifically, I was on my way down to the class and getting in my car. I drove 12 hours to go take the class from William Rand in 2013 in Glens Falls, New York. And I remember having this specific thought: life doesn't get any better than this. Because once I had my master's, my horses became attuned. We were all doing Reiki all the time. I began teaching Reiki. Even though that wasn't the reason that I began teaching Reiki, my financial issues sorted out because so many people wanted the classes. And I really looked around and said, life doesn't get any better than this. But I was used to following my guidance or my calling, and my calling was to go and study Karuna Reiki. And then life did get a whole lot better. And better than I thought was ever possible. And I went, oh, okay. What was your experience with Karuna Reiki?
Yeah, looking back as you were talking, I thought, oh my gosh, I just had this epiphany that I thought, why did I take Karuna Reiki at the time I did? And now I think I understand. My mother had just been diagnosed with cancer, and I think, to me, this energy is very mothering and very loving and very feminine.
Nurturing, isn't it?
It's very nurturing, compassionate action. And it just dawned on me that, oh, that's why, because I didn't do my master until 2013, but I didn't take Karuna until 2016.
Okay.
And it came in then because I needed it. I needed these symbols and this energy to sustain me through being a caregiver for my mother and the transition that was coming in 2017. And I didn't know that at the time. So thank you for that epiphany. But that makes perfect sense. Okay. That's why I waited, I guess. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And when I needed this deeper support or from these higher frequencies, these very nurturing and compassionate action. Duh. I don't know how I didn't see this before. What is a caregiver for somebody who has cancer? You have to come from a place of compassionate action. And my mother didn't die until 2017. But yeah, this Karuna came through. I don't know. I just never put those things together yet. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. So you may feel called to this Karuna if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, what is that, Karuna? It's, for me, I guess it's a very nurturing energy that helps you fill up so that you can go and bring more compassion to the world.
What do you love most about it, Karen, while you're on that line?
I love all the different symbols. So at first, when I took Karuna and when I got the book, it's 8 more symbols. And I was like, holy moly, that's a lot. And it was overwhelming. But you know what? That's what I love about it the most is holy fire, for example. It feels like this glowing golden light or this beautiful mist sort of a feeling. And each one of these symbols, and I don't know if you guys could feel it as we were channeling each one individually at the beginning. I'm so glad you were guided to do that, Pam. But each one of those to me is like a beautiful, colorful thread. And the sessions become almost like weaving a tapestry of healing. And you get like you're the loom and you're channeling this energy to the client. But then it's, it needs a little bit of this comes in, and then a little bit of that comes in. And the other thing I love about Karuna is we learn to chant in tone, which I could talk about forever. Maybe we'll do that in a minute. But from time, and that at first I felt weird about it.
Yeah, nobody ever wants to chant or
And
tone.
my students, like we do practice sessions, like when I taught in person, I'd come around and they'd be like, Sonar, hello. And I'm like, come on, can't hear you. And that's one thing I like about the online Karuna is I have them just turn off their sound for Zoom. I said, now just let that sound come through. Activate Zono. Now I want you just to go like, feel it, that vibration of that energy through your body. And I let them like mute themselves. Because here's the cool thing though, when you do it as a group over Zoom, it comes in like in waves. Yeah. And it's just this amazing thing. But when I do sessions, either in person or I just do distance sessions now on the phone, the clients will say, if I chant, and I'm just going with whatever comes through, I'm chanting. And it's weird. It's like making like these different, like a colorful tapestry. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like a thread of this comes in, a thread of that. And it's so specific to what the client needs. And I'm just guided to what comes through. And I feel like I'm just like it really does feel like I'm the loom, and those are like the threads of light coming in, and you're just a light weaver in a way.
I love
and
it.
The clients say, I could feel when you were chanting. I was like, and I'll say, do you mind if I make some sacred sounds? Because you don't want them to startle them off the table. But they'll say that I felt that in my bones. Like I could feel when you said with Rama, this may cause some things to drop away. And when you're, as a Karuna practitioner, chanting the energy through the sound waves of your voice. So it's not just coming through the light waves of your hands, it's coming through the sound waves of your voice. And it just, it's transformative. I love Karuna Reiki.
I do too.
That was a long answer.
It's one of my favorite classes to teach. Whenever I teach Karuna Reiki, it's so uplifting for the students, for me, for everybody involved. But I think the thing that I love about it the most is the additional healing frequencies. And I noticed that there were certain things like sexual abuse and child abuse and things like that with Usui Reiki, even at the master level, I was working with some wonderful people trying to heal and help them heal some of these issues. And the progress was very slow, if it was there at all. And then Karuna Reiki came in and just pow, it was so powerful. I had one client explain, when I first came back, I contacted all the people I had taught at the master level and said, hey, I've got this new frequency and I need to learn more about it. Would you like a free session? And they traveled from all over to come for their sessions and shared with me what they experienced. And I remember one client saying it felt like she could feel things popping off of her body like popcorn from that first symbol. And I won't say the name, but from that first symbol. And so it was amazing. But the other thing that I noticed was my own life. I thought things had gotten really beautiful and really effortless when I became a Reiki master. But Karuna Reiki took that to another level. I can remember thinking, wow, I didn't realize life could get as effortless and as beautiful as it did with Karuna Reiki. So I love Karuna.
Yeah, it does. It goes deep. So yes, some of the symbols help you work on the shadow self. Yeah, a lot of it was the Karuna, because I didn't have Holy Fire helped a lot with the remnants stuff. It just,
yes,
you heal in layers. We've probably said this a million times on this podcast, but it was the Karuna Reiki that first went deep into the childhood sexual abuse and sexual assault and this list of things to start releasing that. And then, it helps, makes it easier.
Yeah.
When I've talked with Karen Harrison, she says she works with the Holy Fire a lot. She's a family therapist and a counselor. And she said, Reiki can do so much. It goes so deep, so fast. And it's so much faster than 6 months of talk therapy.
That's what she mentioned that on my podcast too, that she's found that it can really, and I find they're beautiful to use together. But yeah, she has mentioned that it just goes so deep and is so effective. And one of the symbols with Karuna Reiki is a spiritual anesthetic. And so what I love about that is not only does it go incredibly deep and loosen up things that might even be ingrained at the cellular level, but it also can, where was I going with that, Karen? I just lost my train.
That it's
the spiritual anesthetic. Yeah, you don't
you
necessarily
have to feel it, all that.
You don't have to feel it. So you can release really painful, difficult things without necessarily feeling it. And one of the lovely things about a session with this is you don't even have to tell us what you're working. We can just know that you're working on something personal for you, something deeply personal, and you don't have to talk about it. And we can still use these symbols to effortlessly help you release that. And I love that. I love that my clients can feel, that they don't have to share some of the things that are deeply traumatic for them, and they don't have to experience them again.
You don't have to pull it up and look at it again and feel all that bleh.
Yeah, and sometimes you feel a little, but not a.
And a lot of times people cry, and sometimes they'll say, "I don't even know why I'm crying," and I'll say, "You're just releasing old stuff. Just let it go. You don't have to tell me what it is. You don't even have to know what it is. You
exactly
just be when you're willing to let it go. And maybe it's your higher self that's okay. It's time to let this go. You've learned this lesson. You've whatever, and it's time, and you just let it go. And it frequently is accompanied by crying, or sometimes. But yeah, I love that about Karuna.
One of the things I noticed with Karuna is that my self sessions got a lot more subtle. And so much so that I wasn't even always sure there was something happening. And so one of the things that I did was I asked the energy, hey, can you give me a sign or some way to know that energies are releasing? Because it got more powerful. I think I could tell for my clients, but for my self sessions, I wasn't sure. And so little tears just leak out of my eyes. That's how I know that things are moving. And do I need to know what they are? I absolutely don't. There's even a symbol that helps us move into past lives and release things that we may not be aware of that might still be encoded in our DNA or be still impacting us. So
or ancestral trauma, when you said that, so when Pam said earlier, things that are coded in at a cellular level, that it can release things at a cellular level, what she's talking about really is the epigenetics, which psychologists are looking at it saying, oh, this is like ancestral trauma, it's flipped epigenetic markers on or off. And so it's healing that stuff.
Yeah.
That passes down.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Karen.
No, I'm fascinated by it. That's just been my obsession of late. But really, I think the Karuna Reiki started with that there's different kinds of ancestral trauma. Sometimes there was a study that they did during a famine in Holland, the Dutch famine, and that was people generations later that have the obesity gene flipped on because of this famine. I mean, there's that kind of science. So it can heal those sorts of things, but then also just emotional things. We would talk about ancestral trauma could be, so in the United States, I'm in the United States, it could be African-American population, that trauma that their ancestors experienced, or our Native American, well, and yours too, in Canada. Native American populations. I'm about to move to Ecuador. They had like Spanish colonialism. We all have ancestral trauma, that kind of stuff. And that changes our cellular makeup. That trauma affects it, and then it's passed down through the generations. So it releases that kind of stuff. Flips those markers back off or back on.
That's right.
Whichever's better. So I find that fascinating.
I do too.
Yeah, you're a scientist, so yeah. Of course you do. Yeah, but
I do.
And I wish I could understand it with my mind, but it's beyond mind. Yeah. When you were talking earlier about even like Karuna, like calling this Karuna Reiki or calling it this, trying to put a name on an energy that is boundless, and it's difficult to talk about sometimes.
Yeah, and speaking of boundless, I was speaking with Colleen Benelli, and she said that she received a message with William at one point that the cap has been lifted from what is possible with Karuna Reiki. And so that essentially tells us that this frequency of energy means nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. And as a matter of fact, one of the things, and I'll put a link to this article in our podcast notes, one of the things we noticed through Karuna Reiki is that during sessions, several LRMTs, licensed Reiki Master teachers with the ICRT, began to notice that new energies were coming into our sessions, very specific energies. And we realized these were the lights. And the lights are something that Karuna Reiki brought in and made possible for us. And I know in my own session, I was working with someone and the light of self-love came in, and it showed that many people disconnected with self-love around 10 or 12 years old, just from social conditioning and some of the cultural messages that we receive, that your body should look like this, your nose should look like that, and your hair should be this color and that style, and so on. And around the same time, I remember I said, but it looked very different from any of the frequencies I'd seen before. And at the same time, Colleen Benelli noticed the light of beauty was coming into her sessions. Karen Harrison noticed the light of forgiveness was coming into her sessions. And I think Kathy Malinovsky had, I forget what one, maybe compassion, or maybe that was Jill Teal. And so several, and Jay Jackson had the light of truth come in. And so we noticed that basically for every energy that we need, you can have the light of, one time I had the light of career attainment come in for somebody. And for every condition that you need to create, there is a light available. And it's been just the heightened frequencies of Karuna Reiki that have made this possible. And I want to just talk for a minute about when I say heightened frequencies, and it doesn't mean that there's any one type of Reiki that's better than another. What it means is they build on each other. So, Usui Reiki at the level 1 and 2, it builds so that you can go to the master level. After you're at the master level for a while and that relationship is developed, you can add Karuna, and that builds, and there's a synergy when these energies come together. And the same when we add animal Reiki, that builds. And so it's just broadening the spectrum of what we can access and what's available. And for me personally, I just really, at that point, I was a professional Reiki master. I was seeing clients. And even if I hadn't been, I would have gone to study Karuna Reiki, but because I was called to it. But I just thought, I want to have everything possible in my toolkit to work with my friends and family and clients with Reiki. And that was a big, what was the reason? I know you realize now that it had to do with your mom, but was there a specific reason that you went to study Karuna when you did? Aside from that, or was that?
I just follow my nudges. So like, why are you moving to Ecuador? I don't know, because my guides told me to. But no, not a specific reason more, except that I think I was ready. I was ready for more. And maybe that's why some people are like, they're just hungry for it. They've been maybe on the journey longer than I was. I didn't start my Reiki journey until I was 49, and I had to heal a little bit. It's like some of the heavy stuff had to drop off before I went, okay, I guess it's coming out of a chrysalis. You have to shake off this much before you go, your wings come out and you go, okay, I'm ready to expand my wings a little more now. And that's how it felt. And I think, because you were talking about it's not a higher, like a better frequency or anything, but I'm fascinated by cymatics. I mentioned to you earlier, Pam, that the science of sound. And you probably, guys, you've seen, maybe go on YouTube and just type in CYMATICS. Cymatics is the science of sound. And when you probably will see like some metal plates and they put sand on it, and then they attach that to a speaker, and then they change the frequency. So they'll go, and it creates sacred geometry. And the lower frequencies create less complex patterns. And as the frequency, as they turn it up and then the frequency goes higher, the geometric patterns get more complex. I think it doesn't mean that the lower frequencies aren't as good as the higher frequencies. They're just not as complex. And I think that Karuna Reiki, Matt, as we're going through this, I think we're just turning up the frequency. And so you get with that, I'm a very visual learner. So when it's a high frequency, you have a lot of different lines in those geometric patterns, just like you get more symbols in the Karuna, just like these other lights start coming in. That's what I was thinking. These other lights, the frequency is you are vibrating higher because you are the channel of this energy. And so, yeah, you are channeling like higher frequency. And when you can maintain like this, like, all right, give me some more, you can go hold more, a higher frequency. And then I think that's when you start getting more lines. Am I making any sense?
You are to me. I really like that visual, actually, Karen.
But I think maybe that's what the lights are. Maybe that's why you've got these other symbols that came in with the Karuna, like 8, because like I said at the beginning, it's like symbols. 8 symbols.
But they're really easy to learn, and they're very
it is,
aren't they?
And they're really specific. So you can really tailor your healing. You can I'm gonna go back to the tuning thing. You can fine tune your healing session. Yeah. It's not just holy or the other names. It's not just like the Reiki Master symbol, or it's not just this one. And you have the power symbol, the mental, emotional, the distance symbol. You have all these other frequencies there, but now you're holding those frequencies as more. Give me more. So here's some 8 more. And then when you work with those for a while, maybe that's why the lights are coming in, Pam.
I think
you're already holding this many, and then higher. It's always there. It's up here and we're down on this lower frequency, and you have to
rise up to it.
And then maybe that's what William meant. The cap's off.
The cap's off. And I think what that means is anything is possible. Before my husband studied Karuna Reiki with me, he was confused. And I get this question a lot. I wonder if you do too, Karen. He said, I'm already a Reiki master. Why would I take Karuna? And this was the beginning of COVID. We were just teaching. It was my first online class, my first solo online class, actually, just become licensed. Or maybe even I think it might have been my last class I needed to teach to become licensed at the Karuna Reiki Master level. And I said, well, you don't have to, but some people are guided to. And he said, well, I'm going to be home anyway, because we were all, maybe I might as well take it. And what's really funny is it's his favorite. He identifies with it. He says he even identifies with it more than he identifies with Yusui. And we'll talk about chanting and toning next, because he said, if you had told me a couple of months ago or a year ago that I would be walking through the woods chanting and toning symbols to trees and the forest, I would have said you were crazy. There was no way that was going to happen. But we do that almost every day. We love using our voice with the symbols. And that's one of the techniques, chanting and toning, that we learn with Karuna Reiki. And I know you love to talk about that, so I'm going to pass that over to you.
I do. If anybody's watched me on your podcast, I like to talk. I like to make sounds, but some people don't. And when I was a child, nobody believes this, but I was terribly shy. I had no self-esteem.
I was very shy too.
Yeah, I had long hair that I could sit on, and if I looked down, it would just completely cover my face, and like I didn't exist, and don't look at me. But so I have students like that sometimes. They're like, I don't want to make sounds. I'm an introvert. I don't want to make sounds.
When I first learned this, I said, I'm not using that technique. No way. People are going to think I'm crazy. I use that technique in every session now.
I do too. And it's usually their favorite part, because we're in a physical body, and we're healing things that are sometimes out here in the mental, emotional, out in the energetic body. But when sound, it penetrates like all the energy bodies, and then you feel it even in your physical body. So there's that aspect. When I am chanting, okay, so first of all, chanting is usually faster. I chant, a lot of times I'm imbuing the energy field with the energy of those particular symbols. And it's so I chant out loud. So Pam, you're not saying the names of the symbols.
No, but
okay. I could say holy fire, probably, right? Yeah. So I could say, so if I chanted holy fire, it would just be different, the rhythm of it and everything. Maybe I'm giving it in a session and I'm feeling holy fire. Maybe I'm feeling holy fire, holy fire, holy fire, holy fire, holy fire. Maybe I'm feeling like that it's coming through, but that's
Sometimes
chanting.
you feel a great big holy fire.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Yeah. And some people think like I can't sing. That's all right. In
I
fact,
can't sing.
sometimes, and I can carry a tune, but sometimes I'm chanting and it comes out, holy fire, holy. It'll just go. And I'm like, what was that? But
It
it
goes to the
does
frequency
something.
that people need. It goes
Mm-hmm.
to
So
and
it's not about being pretty or anything like that. It's just, it is
being
part of,
effective. It's about being effective.
it's about being effective, right? So you're not performing, like nobody cares about that. You're giving another dimension. This energy to me is very interdimensional also. When I am making sound, letting that energy come through and manifest through sound waves, it takes on a whole other, seriously, a dimension to the healing. Frequently I feel like I'm in some sort of a sound healing temple. Look,
Wow.
I don't think I've said that out loud anywhere. I feel like I'm not in the room anymore. I don't know how to explain it. I feel more interdimensional, and it has something to do with that shift that happens, like their body, my body, the energy. It's just all, oh, I guess I just become, that must be what it feels like to be quantum.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just vibrating. Everything is vibrating. I become distinctly aware that everything is a vibration when I'm chanting or toning. And maybe that's why chanting is part of so many religious traditions. Even Christianity had the Gregorian chants, or
Yeah.
chanting in Buddhism,
Even the
Hinduism,
hymns, even the hymns and the songs.
the hymns and psalms. Yeah. Yeah. So there's something to that. And I encourage my students to, like, just let her rip, just do it. Let that sound come through you. You are not performing. You are letting the energy come through you and manifest as that sound. And then toning. So chanting will put it more
In the
evenly,
room,
like in the
in the
energy field.
room, around the client. Yeah.
Yeah. And then toning I'll use when it's really good to, it's like a laser beam. It will just like, and just vibrate that in two
And,
pieces.
and
They're big.
and with toning, we're specific. Like we place it, if there's a
Yeah.
specific
Like,
energy
right.
we're aware of on our client's body or in their aura, we direct it to that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's just, we know how powerful sound is.
yeah.
God love us. The American military has weaponized it. We know how powerful it is. You
Okay.
know,
No, it is. It's,
I don't know if you know that. You know,
I
the
didn't know
American
that.
military.
No.
Yeah. They take like big, horrible, like hard rock music and just really loud and just blast it
Oh
because it
gosh.
drives people nuts.
Yeah, it would drive me nuts. I like quiet.
Yeah. Or people can go, oh, particular note and break a
Yeah.
glass. I mean,
Break a glass.
we know that sound can levitate things. We're beginning to really study the power of sound. And so that's one thing I love about the Karuna class is it's only 3 days and we only get maybe a good day of practicing with the chanting.
Yeah.
But for many students, they haven't heard of cymatics. They haven't even considered it. They haven't thought about it. It gives another dimension, there's that word again, to healing. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's what taking a Karuna class is about. You're a Reiki master, and maybe that's great. But then you work with the energy. Oh, I froze again. You work with the energy a little bit, and then you think, I think there's more. I'm ready for more. And that more is Karuna, because that's going to go, I can do even more with this.
I agree. And let's talk about if Karuna Reiki can be learned by anyone. Do you need prior Reiki experience? So yes, you do have to have a master class, an Usui master class before taking Karuna, but you can take Karuna Reiki from any lineage. And some people find that's an expedient way to get holy fire. And so some people will come to my Karuna Reiki class from another lineage and say they'd like to learn Holy Fire, and they might as well learn Karuna at the same time. It is a big shift, but it does seem to work really well for people. And of course, if you're already a Usui Holy Fire Reiki master for at least 6 months, you can then move on. And you do need to be at the teacher level, though, at the master teacher level with Usui from any lineage, and then you can move on to Karuna. Do you have anything else to add there, Karen?
No, in fact, one of my favorite students from the UK, he was drawn to Karuna and he was drawn to Holy Fire at the same time. And of course, I'm always all about saving money. So I'm like, you could take Holy Fire Karuna and you would be attuned to both.
And you can then teach
and you could teach
all
both
of your classes with Holy Fire. And I used to think that too. But I've noticed that some of my students say, yeah, I think I'm ready for that accelerated learning. And others say, no, I think I'd like to take it slower.
He did. So that was my recommendation. I said, you could do this, because he had been a Reiki Master teacher for 20 years. And I said, I think you would be fine doing this. But you know what? He said, no. Oh, this is my terrible British accent. No, he said, because I'm going to teach Holy Fire. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to take the Holy Fire Master first.
A lot of people that do take Karuna, they wind up going back and taking
That's what he did.
Master anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So usually I'll say, look, go ahead and take the Master, Holy Fire Master, and then the Karuna. And we talk a little about the Holy Fire again in the Karuna Master, just because they could be coming from other lineages. And so for students who have had Holy Fire Master already, it gives them, I frequently talk about that spiral of learning. You've already learned this, but now you're going through it again from a higher perspective. And you go, oh yeah, I didn't catch that first time around. Or you have a different perspective on it.
It's a really nice review, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think some of the benefits are of being a Holy Fire Karuna Reiki practitioner?
You can offer your clients faster, deeper healing. That's all I can say. Faster, deeper healing, because it's very specific.
Yeah.
You're now carrying 8 more frequencies around in your energy field that you can channel into your session as needed, depending on the client. And it shifts your awareness. I think it made me more effective also. But Pam said you don't have to be aware of everything that the client's going through. It made me more effective because I'm more sensitive to energy. And I think the more energy you're attuned to, the more sensitive you are.
And I found that it just, like I'm going to mention again, it brought an effortlessness into my life. So there was a lot of personal healing that happened with Karuna that I don't even think I was aware I needed. And it just really helped with my spiritual growth, Would you say the same thing, Karen?
Yeah, me too. I'm going to go back to that butterfly and the chrysalis sort of thing. The Master breaks you out of that chrysalis, but that Karuna really helps you spread your wings out and dry them so you can fly.
I like that. I really like that analogy. Karen, I don't know. Is there anything else that we need to let people know about Karuna? We could mention Kuan Yin. She is one of the Ascended Masters who is sometimes associated with Karuna Reiki. If you already have Karuna Reiki, there's a wonderful exercise that Laurel Shantigaya suggests in her book on Karuna Reiki, which is to just spend a week with each symbol and get to know it better. I really love that exercise, and I encourage a lot of my students to do it. And the other thing maybe that I would mention is how lovely the classes are. My husband would always come home, and after teaching level 1 or 2 or masters, they're wonderful days, but you could be a little tired by the end of the day. And after teaching Karuna Reiki, I'm just usually buoyant and energized. And he says he noticed it. He remarked on it. And he said, I think it's because you're teaching experts. But I noticed that the students are that way too. Like the students really bond with each other, and they seem to connect at a much higher level again. And so are there any things like that you notice about it?
Yeah, I think especially, the bonding that takes place between the students in the classes. I think maybe it's almost like a meetup. I don't know. I wonder sometimes. I've had this thought in particular classes. Did we just all agree before we came into this life? Okay, we're going to meet up at this Karuna class. Yeah. In 20.
What date?
Okay. Yeah.
What teacher? What date?
Yeah.
Yeah. The people get along. The healing is so beautiful and effortless. It's just an incredible class to teach, isn't it?
And I'm in a couple of classes, and it's usually the Karuna, and this sounds weird to talk about, but I will go ahead anyway, because this is come to Pam's podcast to talk about weird things. We were this one specific Karuna class. There were so many orbs that were flying, and it wasn't just here, but it was distracting because I'd be talking about something and this little ball of light would go ping. And the students would go, oh, there went another one. And then sometimes I'd see them around them too. I still don't know exactly what that was, but I haven't noted, because that's probably the academician in me. I'm like, isn't that interesting? It happens during this time and the other time. But it seems like it happens more in Karuna class. I don't know what that is exactly.
There is something, there's an elevation that really occurs with Karuna.
It's more, I just want to say it's more interdimensional. There's something interdimensional about it.
Yeah, it's a lovely energy. So if you've been giving it any thought, hopefully this podcast just might illuminate you, clear up some things about it so that you can really consider whether or not it is for you. But I know we both have some Karuna classes coming up, Karen. Yours is
and we both have a complimentary session, I think. If you hear this podcast and you have questions about a Karuna class, you can schedule a
complimentary session to chat with us about.
A quick, tell me this about Karuna. Do you think it would help with that? What do you think this is? And
yeah, absolutely.
Or post in the comments if this is on YouTube. Or
definitely. Yeah. And so, Karen, I don't know. I didn't actually have anything prepared for a meditation.
I think that we did it at the beginning. I thought that was, I thought that was really interesting. So hopefully you all could feel that Karuna energy that we were sending through the invocation at the beginning. Because
even chanting and toning silently actually works just as powerfully as with a loud voice. Let's just end with just you and I, just without saying the symbols' names, let's just chant and tone for another few minutes so that the listeners can go out with a nice, beautiful burst of Karuna Reiki. And maybe they can just give some thought as to whether this is for them. I know one of the things that I've done for my masterclass is I provide 4 monthly payments so that it makes it a little easier. But I will mention that when you are supposed to do a class, as soon as you decide to do it, the finances, the teacher, the timing, it usually all lines up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give that some thought if you feel Karuna is something you'd like to add to your toolkit and if it's right for you. So let's just bring our hands in Gasho again. And Karen and I are just going to silently chant and tone the symbols to you. And we just like to take a moment to thank you for joining us here today. And we hope you have enjoyed this burst of Karuna Reiki energy that we shared. If you'd like to learn more, by all means, reach out. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Pam.
Thank you for being here, Karen.